اللهم لك الحمد على ما جرى به قضاؤك في أوليائك الذين استخلصتهم لنفسك ودينك، إذ اخترت لهم جزيل ما عندك من النعيم المقيم الذي لا زوال له ولا اضمحلال، بعد أن شرطت عليهم الزهد في درجات هذه الدنيا الدنيا وزخرفها وزبرجها، فشرطوا لك ذلك وعلمت منهم الوفاء به فقبلتهم وقربتهم وقدمت لهم الذكر العلي والثناء الجلي، وأحببت عليهم ملائكتك وكرمتهم بوحيك ورفعتهم بعلمك وجعلتهم الذرية إليك والوسيلة إلى رضوانك، وبعضا أسكنته جنتك إلى أن أخرجته منها، وبعض حملته في فلكك ونجيته ومن آمن معه من الهلكة برحمتك، وبعض اتخذته لنفسك خليلا وسع لك لسان صدق في الآخرين فأعجبته وجعلت ذلك عليا، وبعض كلمته من شجرة تكليما وجعلت له من أخيه رضا ووزيرا، وبعض أولدته من غير أب وآتيته البينات وأيدته بروح القدس، وكل شرعت له الشريعة ونحجت له من حاجة وتخيرت له أوصياء مستحفظا بعد مستحفظ من مدة إلى مدة إقامة لدينك وحجة على عبادك ولئلا يزول الحق عن مقره ويغلب الباطل على أهله، ولا يقول أحد لولا أرسلت إلينا رسولا منذرا وأقمت لنا على من هاديا فنتبع آياتك من قبل أن نضل ونحزن، إلى أن انتهيت بالأمر إلى حبيبك ونجيبك محمد صلى الله عليه وآله، فكان كمن تجبته سيد من خلقت والصفوة من استفيته وأفضل من اجتبيته وأكرم من اتمت، قدمت على أنبيائك وبعثته إلى الثقلين من عبادك وأوتيته مشاركك ومغاربك وسخرت له البراق وأردت به إلى السماء وأودعته علم ما كان وما يكون إلى انقضاء خلقك ووعدته ثم نصرته بالروح وحفظته بجبرائيل وميكائيل والمسومين من ملائكتك، وودته أن تظهر دين ولا الدين كله ولو كره المشركون، وذلك بعد أن بوعته مبوع صدق من أهله وجعلت له أول بيت وضع للناس الذي بمكة مباركا وهدى للعالمين، فيه آيات بينات مقام إبراهيم ومن دخله كان آمنا، وقلت إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد، ثم جعلت أجر محمد صلواتك عليه وآله مودة في كتابك، فقلت قل لا أسألكم عليه أجرا إلا المودة في القربى، وقلت ما سألتكم من أجر فهو لكم وقلت ما أسألكم عليه من أجر إلا من شاء أن يتخذ إلى ربه سبيلا فكانوا السبيل إليك والمسلك إلى رضوانك فلما انقضت أيامه وقام وليه علي بن أبي طالب صلواتك عليهما وآلهما هاديا إذ كان هو المنذر ولكل قوم هاد فقال والملأ أمامه من كنت مولاه فعلي مولاه اللهم وآل من والاه وعاد من عاداه وانصر من نصره واخذل من خذله وقال من كنت أنا نبيه فعلي أميره وقال أنا ولي من شجرة واحدة وسائر الناس من شجر شتى وحله محل هارون من موسى فقال له أنت مني بمنزلة هارون من موسى إلا أنه لا نبي بعدي فزوج ابنته سيدة نساء العالمين وحل له من مسجده ما حل له وسد الأبواب إلا بابه ثم أودوا علمه وحكمته فقال أنا مدينة العلم وعلي بابها فمن أراد المدينة والحكمة فلياتها من بابها ثم قال أنت أخي ووصي ووارثي لحمك من لحمي ودمك من دمي وسلمك سلمي وحربك حربي والإيمان مخالط لحمك ودمك كما خالط لحمي ودمي وأنت غدا على الحوض خليفتي وأنت تقضي ديني وتنجز إداءتي وشيتك لا منابر من نور مبيضة وجوههم حولي في الجنة وهم جيراني ولولا أنت يا علي لم يعرف المؤمنون بعدي وكان بعد هدى من الضلال ونورا من العمى وحبل الله المتين وصراطه المستقيم لا يسبق بقرابة في رحمي ولا بالسابقة في ديني ولا يلحق في منكبة من مناقبي يحذو حذو الرسول صلى الله عليهما وآلهما ويقاتل على التعويل ولا تأخذ في الله لومة لائم قد وتر في صناديد العرب وقتل أبطالهم وناوش ذوبانهم فعودا قلوبهم أخادا بدرية وخيبرية وهنينية وغيرهن فأغبت على عداوته وأكبت على منابذته حتى قتل الناكثين والكاسدين والمارقين ولما قضى نحبه وقتل وأشكى الآخرين يتبع وأشكى الأولين لم يمتثل أمر رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله في الهادين بعد الهادين والأمة مسرة على مكته مجتمعة على قطيعة رحمه وإقصاء ولده إلا القليل ممن وفى لرعاية الحق فيهم فقتل من قتل واستبي من سبي وأقصي من أقصي وجرى القضاء لهم بما يرجى له حسن المثوبة إذ كانت الأرض لله يورثها من يشاء من عباده والعاقبة للمتقين سبحان ربنا إن كان وعد ربنا لمفعولا ولن يخلف الله وعده وهو العزيز الحكيم. فعلى العطائب من أهل بيت محمد وعلي صلى الله عليهما وآلهما فليبكي الباكون وإياهم فليندب النادبون ولمثله فلتذرف الدموع وليصرخ الصارخون ويضج الضاجون ويئج الآجون. أين الحسن وأين الحسين أين أبناء الحسين؟ صالح بعد الصالح وصادق بعد الصادق. أين السبيل بعد السبيل؟ أين الخيرة بعد الخيرة؟ أين الشموس الطالعة؟ أين الأقمار المنيرة؟ أين الأنجم الزاهرة؟ أين أعلام الدين وكوائد العلم؟ أين بقية الله التي لا تخلو من الإترة الحادية؟ أين المعد لكتدابر الظلماء؟ أين المنتظر لإقامة العنف والعوج؟ أين المرتجى لإزالة الجور والعدوان؟ أين المدخر لتجديد الفرائض والسنن؟ أين المتخير لإعادة الملة والشريعة؟ أين معمل لإحياء الكتاب وحدوده؟ أين محيي معالم الدين وأهله؟ أين كاسم شوكة المعتدين؟ أين عادم أبنية الشرك والنفاق؟ أين مبيد أهل الفسوق والإسيان والطغيان؟ أين حاسد فروع الغي والشقاق؟ أين طامس آثار الزيد والأحواق؟ أين قاطع حبائل الكذب والافتراء؟ أين مبيد الوتاة والمردة؟ أين مستعسل أهل الإناد والتضليل والإلحاد؟ أين معز الأولياء ومضل الأعداء؟ أين جامع الكلمة على التقوى؟ أين باب الله الذي منه يؤتى؟ أين وجه الله الذي لن يتوجه أولياء؟ أين السبب المتصل بين الأرض والسماء؟ أين صائم يوم الفتح ونشر راية الهدى؟ أين معلف شمل الصلاح والرضا؟ أين الطالب دخول الأنبياء وأبناء الأنبياء؟ أين الطالب دم المقتول بكربلاء؟ أين المنصور على من اهتدى عليه وافتراه؟ أين المستر الذي يجاب إذا دعا؟ أين صدر الخلائق ذو البر والتقوى؟ أين ابن النبي المصطفى وابن علي المرتضى وابن خديجة الغراء وابن فاطمة الكبرى؟ بأبي أنت وأمي ونفسي لك الرقاء والحماة. يا ابن السادة المقربين، يا ابن النجباء الأكرمين، يا ابن الهداة المهديين، يا ابن الخيرة المحربين، يا ابن الغطارفة الأنجبين، يا ابن الأطائب المطهرين، يا ابن الخضارمة المنتجبين، يا ابن القماقمة الأكرمين، يا ابن البدور المنيرة، يا ابن السرج المضية، يا ابن الشحب الثاقبة، يا ابن الأنجم الزاهرة، يا ابن السبل الواضحة، يا ابن العلام اللائحة، يا ابن الألم الكاملة، يا ابن السنن المشهورة، يا ابن المعجزات الموجودة، يا ابن الدلائل المشهودة، يا ابن الصراط المستقيم، يا ابن النبأ العظيم، يا ابن من هو في الكتاب لدى الله علي حكيم، يا ابن الآيات والبينات، يا ابن الدلائل الظاهرات، يا ابن البراهين الواضحات الباهرات، يا ابن الهجج البالغة، يا ابن النعم السابغة، يا ابن طه والمحكمات، يا ابن ياسين والذاريات، يا ابن التور والعاديات، يا ابن من دنا فتدلى فكان كاب قوسين أو أدنى دنوا واقترابا من العلي الأعلى. ليت شعري أين استقرت بك النوى، بل أي أرض تكلك أوثرا، أبي رضوى غير أمضي طوى. عزيز علي أن أرى الخلق ولا ترى، ولا أسمع لك حسيسا ولا نجوى. عزيز علي أن تهيت بك دوني البلوى، ولا ينالك مني ضجيج ولا شكوى. بنفسي أنت من غيب لم يخر منا، بنفسي أنت من عظيم ما نزعنا، بنفسي أنت أمنية الشائك يتمنى من مؤمن ومؤمنة ذكره فحنا، بنفسي أنت من عقيد إذ لا يسامى، بنفسي أنت من أصيل مد لا يجارى، بنفسي أنت من تلاب نعم لا تضاهى، بنفسي أنت من نسيف شرف لا يساوى. إلى متى أحار فيك يا مولاي، وإلى متى وأي خطاب أسف فيك وأي نجوى. عزيز علي أن أجاب دونك وأناغى، عزيز علي أن أبكيك ويغدو لك الورى، عزيز علي أن يجري عليك دونهم ما جرى. هل من معين فأطيل معولويل والبكاء، هل من جزوع فوسا إذا جزوا إذا خلعوا، هل كظيت عين فساعدتها عيني على القضاء. هل إليك يا ابن أحمد سبيل فتلقى، هل يتصل يومنا منك بهدة فنحظى. متى نرد مناهلك الروية فنروى، متى ننتك من عظمائك فقد طال الصدى. متى نغاديك ونرابك فنقر عينا، متى ترانا ونراك وقد نشرت لواء النصر تراء. أترانا نعوف بك وأنت تؤم الملا، وقد ملأت الأرض عدلا وعظمت عادات أحوانا وإقابا. صبرت الوتاة وجحدت الحق، وقطعت دابر المتكبرين، واتسست وصول الظالمين. ونحن نقول الحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم أنت كشاف الكرب والبلوى، وإليك استعدي فعندك العدوى. وأنت رب الآخرة والدنيا، فاغث يا غياث المستغيثين. عبيدك المبتلى وأره سيده يا شديد القوى، وعزل عنه بالأسى والجوى، وبرد غليله يا من على العرش استوى، ومن إليه الرجعى والمنتهى. اللهم ونحن عبيدك التائبون إلى وليك المذكر بك وبنبيك، خلقته لنا عصمة وملاذا، وأكمته لنا كراما ومآبا. وأنت وللمؤمنين منا إماما فبلغوا منا تحية والسلاما وزدنا بذلك يا ربي إكراما واجعل مستقرا لنا مستقرا ومقاما وأتمم نعمتك بتقديمك إياه ومامنا حتى تولدنا جنانك ومرافقة الشهداء من خلصائك اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وصل على محمد جده ورسولك السيد الأكبر وعلى أبي السيد الأصغر وجدة الصديقة الكبرى فاطمة بنت محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وعلى من استفيت من آبائه البرر وعليه أفضل وأكمل وأتم وأدوم وأكثر وأوفر ما صليت على أحد من أصفيائك وخيرتك من خلقك وصل عليه صلاة لا غاية لعددها ولا نهاية لمددها ولا نفاد لأمدها اللهم واكن بالحق وألهز بالباطل وعدل بي أولياءك وعدل بي أعداءك وسر لي اللهم بيننا وبينه وصلة تؤدي إلى مرافقة سلفه وجعلنا ممن يأخذ بهزته ويمكث في ظله وإن على تأدية حقوقه إليه والاتحاد في طاعته واجتناب معصيته وامن علينا برضاه وهب لنا رأفته ورحمته ودعاءه وخيرا ما ننال به ساعة من رحمتك وفوزا عندك واجعل صلاتنا به مقبولة وذنوبنا به مغفورة ودعاءنا به مستجابة واجعل أرزاقنا به مبسوطة وهمومنا به مكفية وحوائجنا به مقضية وأقبل إلينا بوجهك الكريم واقبل تقربنا إليك وانظر إلينا نظرة رحيمة نستكمل بها الكرامة عندك ثم لا تصرفها عنا بجودك واسقنا من عود جدي صلى الله عليه وآله بكاسه وبيده ريان ربيان حنيان سائغا لغما بعده يا أرحم الراحمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطاهرين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم ارزقنا توفيق الطاعة وبعد المعصية وصدق النية وإرفان الهرمة وأكرمنا بالهدى والاستقامة وسدد ألسنتنا بالصواب والحكمة واملأ قلوبنا بالعلم والمعرفة وطهر بطوننا من الحرام والشبهة واكف أيدينا عن الظلم والسرقة واغض أبصارنا عن الفجور والخيانة واسدد أسماعنا عن اللغو والغيبة تفضل على علمائنا بالزهد والنصيحة وعلى المتعلمين بالجهد والرغبة وعلى المستمعين بالاتباع والموعظة وعلى مرضى المسلمين بالشفاء والراحة وعلى موتاهم بالرأفة والرحمة وعلى مشايخنا بالوقار والسكينة وعلى الشباب بالإنابة والتوبة وعلى النساء بالحياء والعفة وعلى الأغنياء بالتواضع والسعة وعلى الفقراء بالصبر والقناعة وعلى الغزاة بالنصر والغلبة وعلى السراء بالخلاص والراحة، وعلى الأمراء بالعدل والشفقة، وعلى الرعية بالإنصاف وحسن السيرة. وبارك للحجاج والزوار في الزاد والنفقة، وابد ما أوجبت عليهم من الحج والعمرة بفضلك ورحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. صلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطاهرين. رحم الله من كان. سورة مباركة الفاتحة.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليك يا حجة الله في أرضي، السلام عليك يا عين الله في خوفي، السلام عليك يا نور الله الذي يهتدي به المهتدون ويفرج به عن المؤمنين. السلام عليك أيها المهذب الخائف، السلام عليك أيها الولي الناصح، السلام عليك يا سفينة النجاة، السلام عليك يا عين الحياة، السلام عليك صلى الله عليك وآل بيتك الطيبين الطاهرين، السلام عليك أجل الله لك ما وعدك من النصر وظهور الأمر. السلام عليك يا مولاي، أنا مولاك عارف بأولاك وأخراك، أتقرب إلى الله تعالى بك وبآل بيتك، وانتظروا ظهورك وظهور الحق على يديك، وأسأل الله أن يصلي على محمد وآل محمد، وأن يجعلني من المنتظرين لك والتابعين والناصرين لك على أعدائك، والمستشهدين بين يديك في جملة أوليائك. يا مولاي يا صاحب الزمان، صلوات الله عليك وعلى آل بيتك. هذا يوم الجمعة، وهو يومك المتوقع فيه ظهورك والفرج فيه للمؤمنين على يديك، وقتل الكافرين بسيفك، وأنا يا مولاي فيه ضيفك وجارك، وأنت يا مولاي كريم من الأولاد الكرامة ومأمور بالضيافة والإجارة، فأضفني وأجرني صلوات الله عليك وعلى أهل بيتك الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله اللهم صل على محمد أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله اللهم صل على محمد أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين وإمام المتقين عليا ولي الله صلوات الله وسلامه عليه أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين وإمام المتقين عليا حجة الله صلوات الله وسلامه عليه حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فوض أمري إلى الله إن الله بصير بالعباد ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل ونعم المولى ونعم النصير والصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على الرسول المسدد المصطفى الأمجد المحمود الأحمد الذي سمي في السماء بأحمد وفي الأرض بأبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على وعلى أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتجبين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا وقل رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي أما بعد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتاب الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق صدق الله العلي العظيم زينوا مجالسكم بالصلوات على محمد وآل محمد My respected elders, brothers and sisters, youngsters in Islam and Iman here in Florida and across the globe, wherever you're hearing my voice, Assalamu alaikum jameen wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Question, what is nuance? When we come to the lives of the apostles and the prophets that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent, He sent from the time of Adam till Khatam. He has sent guide after guide, the likes of Adam, the likes of Nuh alayhi salam, Noah, the likes of Abraham, Father Abraham, the likes of course, the great personalities such as Musa or Moses, and the likes of course, Isa, Jesus, as well as the Holy Prophet, our final messenger. And in this time where we are reflecting and commemorating this great personality, it's important for us to reflect on this notion of what is it that the Prophet came for. And when you come to this understanding, you find that first of all, we are told that وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. That first, this great individual, this great ambassador, this great prophet, the seal of prophets, the final one, he comes as a rahmah, as a mercy on mankind. No, not mankind, universes, on the alameen, as far as the human mind can conceive. No, beyond where even the human mind can conceive. Whatever God has made, this entity has come as a mercy to that. First principle. Second principle, you will find that if you were to condense down religion, as if you recall in the lecture that I mentioned last weekend, actually, or last week, when I talked about this notion of religion and this notion of compassion when we were talking about the Holy Prophet and knowledge. And we said that the likes of Weizsäcker, the physicist, said that he turned Einstein's famous quote of the relationship between religion and science. And he said religion and science, but Weizsäcker came after and he turned it into knowledge and compassion. And he says if you boil, in his view, essentially he's saying, if you boil religion down into one word, it should boil down to compassion. Your moral compass, that is, what is right, what is wrong in its truest sense. Similarly, one of the things to get to this end of compassion, to feel for humanity, to make the right moral judgments, you will find that the emissaries of God, they were sent ultimately as teachers. They were sent ultimately as guides. They were ultimately sent to invite the people, to educate them to understand what is what. First principle. So the question that I'm asking you and the question that I'm asking myself is, what is nuance? This term that we have in English that we hear so much about, well, what does it truly mean? And how does it have to do with my religion? How does it have to do with my life? How does it have to do with Islam? You see, when you go to the lives of the prophets, let's start with Nuh. Adam's story. And when we come to the time of Nuh and Ibrahim and Musa, what do we learn? Allah says to Nuh, propagate to the people. Nuh goes and he propagates to the people. They don't listen. 1 year passes, 2 years pass, 3 years pass. You and I, forget 1 year, 2 year, maybe one time I said, and these people don't listen, I'm done. 950 years the Quran enshrined this. Alfa sinin illa khamsina ama. That Nuh propagated for 1,000 years less 50. Because that's how their numbering system went at that time. So 950 years. And of course he lived longer than this, but this is what the Quran enshrined. Eventually Allah says, very well, okay, fine. At that point in time, what does Allah tell Nuh? God Almighty tells Nuh, or Noah as he's known in the Bible, okay, I'm going to take care of this. You go on your way from here. Just go home. You did your job. I'm going to take care of it from here, or no? He said, Nuh, I want you to build an ark. I want you to build a boat. I want you to build a ship. So he goes and he starts building. In the middle of a barren desert, people begin to laugh at him. They say, Nuh, what are you doing? You're building a ship in the middle of the desert? How? Why? What is wrong with you? He didn't. He trusted Allah and he persisted in building this boat, building the ship in the middle of a dry, barren desert. He's building and there's no sign of rain for miles. Nobody could imagine, nobody could fathom. But he builds it. That was the engineering marvel of the time. That was the technological marvel of the time. That was the aircraft of the time. That was the Tesla of the time. That was the X, Y, and Z of the time. He made his prophet into an engineer. He said, go build this. You're a marine engineer for the next few months. That's your job. So he's building this. And he's building it day after day, and he's doing it, and eventually then Allah sends him to be an agricultural engineer and go and find these animals and get them together in pairs and get them on the ship. And so now he's doing that, and he's getting all of these onto there. So you see the prophets have to wear a lot of hats, kind of like resident ulama. This is the reality of the matter. So you have to deal with this and that and the other. And so this was happening to the time of the prophet. So he said, okay. So he goes, and then he gets all of these pairs. And eventually, when everyone's ready, Nuh, you're there? You're there, yeah. Everyone's ready, you got everyone on board, pairs, all good, okay. Then the trickling starts. It starts to drizzle a little bit. It doesn't come all at once. Then the rain starts, and the rain starts, and it accumulates, and it accumulates, and eventually, it takes rise. And then the people begin to flood. And Nuh himself says, hey, look, Nuh wants his son to get on board, but the Quran says, إِنَّهُ لَيْسَ مِنْ أَهْلِ إِنَّهُ عَمَلٌ غَيْرُ صَالِحٍ. That is, look, Nuh, the representative of God, his own son, according to the Islamic version, was not to come into the ship. Nuh is saying, my son, his son's going to a height, and he's saying, my son, come onto the ship. He says, no, Dad. Now the principle here is sometimes in our communities, in our societies, people say, what is this person telling us about his own house is not in order? but the prophets, their houses were not in order sometimes. The principle here is to understand from Allah's guidance, Allah's wisdom. You may think one thing, but the reality of the matter may be different. So Nuh doesn't just say God will send it. He works. God makes him work and he works. He doesn't say, Ya Allah, you're kun fayakun. You don't even need to say it, it will happen. Why are you making me build a ship? I mean, can't you just build a ship like this? I don't even need a ship, just lift us up. But no, there's a wisdom there. There's a divine wisdom. Question is, what is nuance? We go further to the time of Ibrahim. Ibrahim gives the example in the Quran. He tells the people, look, Abraham, Father Abraham, he's looking and he's seeing this star declining and he says, this star is declining. It's my Lord. Of course, Ibrahim knows, but he's inviting the people to think, to contemplate, to reflect. And then when it begins to decline, he says, that can't be my Lord. Or the destruction of the idols. Or, for example, that moment where he is propagating and inviting people. Allah could have made people automatically believers. He didn't need any prophets. We need prophets. So why? Why this system of cause and effect? Moses. Now think about this. Musa, there's an era in time where Moses is being born or he's expected to be born. There's a prophecy. The Pharaoh, he hears about this prophecy from his advisors and the soothsayers, and they say there's a prophecy that someone's going to come and they're going to take over your kingdom. They're going to be born in your kingdom. So every other year, every alternative year, he was committing infanticide. He was killing males, young males. And so in that year where Moses or Musa is born, they're going from house to house, boy, girl, boy, girl. Every time it's a boy, they commit infanticide. And so the mother of Musa has this child, and she's like, what do I do with this child? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran says, a question, does Allah inspire anyone except a prophet? The answer is yes. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَى النَّحْلِ, and we inspired the bee. And Allah says, وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَى أُمِّ مُوسَى, we inspired the mother of Musa. And at that point in time, she released one of the most difficult things. Imagine the most prized possession of a mother, and a parent in general, but a mother in particular, is the child. And she releases that. Courage is in her heart to release the child into the river. And Allah, it is as if Allah takes the custody. And subhanAllah, where does this child flow to? Right into the hands of Fir'aun, in through Asiya, the wife of Fir'aun, who was a believer in the house of the tyrant and the zalim. But what does the Quran say when it comes to him? This is where I'm trying to explain nuance. What does the Quran say when it says to Musa and Harun, go to Fir'aun? اذهب إلى فرعون إنه طغى. Go towards Fir'aun. He has transgressed. But what did Allah say right after that? What did Allah say? But make sure you use what? You shout at him, you scold at him, you punch him, what do? قولا لينا. Use a gentle tone. Use a mild tone. Ya Allah, this is a tyrant, this is a zalim, this is an oppressor. You're telling Musa to speak to him gently? Why? I would think that you would be harsh, be strict, be stringent. He's challenged me. But no, Allah says, no. Fir'aun, go to him, advise him, admonish him. But use a gentle tone. Use a light tone. Use a mild tone. Perhaps that will be of benefit. And the Quran uses this type of terminology. What do I mean here? The reason why the ulama say this comes is a few reasons. One is with respect to this gentle tone or mild tone, it is also a meaning of gentle word. This is possible translation of understanding of what is layyana referring to. And this could be a reference to the shahada. That is, this is one view. The other is, Razi says in this context, Fakhruddin Razi. Remember, Fakhruddin Razi, although he's a scholar from our brothers in Ahl Sunnah, our own scholar, Ayatollah Wahid al-Khurasani, he says, all the scholarship, in his view, all the scholarship of Ahl Sunnah on one side, and Fakhruddin al-Razi, Sahib al-Tafsir al-Kabir on the other side, Tafsir al-Kabir's knowledge, the knowledge of Fakhruddin al-Razi is that much that it outweighs everyone. So he respects that knowledge. He doesn't agree with everything, sure, but he has a scholarly respect for that view. This Fakhruddin al-Razi said, if you read the pages of history, I'm trying to explain the importance of holistic understanding and seeing the whole picture. And so he says, Fakhruddin al-Razi said, if you read the pages of history, tyrants, whenever someone has come aggressively to a tyrant, they never accept, they get more harsh. So he said it would make sense that the Quran is saying to use a light tone, a gentle tone, in the sense of human nature. The third example, what the scholars say is, there was a right that Fir'aun had on Musa of tarbiyah, of caretaking, of looking after him, of growing up in his house. So Ya Allah, this guy's a tyrant, he's calling himself God, he's doing the ultimate canonical sin, but Allah still said, it wasn't all black and white. Nuance. Do you know where nuance comes from? It comes from the Latin and ultimately French for shading, shade. You know, you ever seen colors in your shading, for example? What color is this? You point to it, like, it's not quite black, it's not quite white, it's gray maybe or something, somewhere in between. In our society, we're losing nuance, we're losing the shade, we're losing the ability to look at things holistically. I remind you of the story, one of my favorite story, of those individuals who were in the city or the city of the blind. When an animal or a creature came to the city of the blind, people are not able to see. You know, you think blindness is an old problem. Believe me, in certain parts of India and Pakistan and other places, people go blind due to malnutrition. In our world, while we're living, while we dispose and discard of, in America, approximately 40% of the food that we produce, there are people in other parts of the world, while we are breathing and talking right now, who are blind not because of anything else, but because they're malnutrition. They don't have enough food. So this was happening at that time as well. In the city of the blind, this creature comes, and everyone approaches it. They say, what is this creature? What is this? So someone begins to tap on and touch it. Oh, it's a rope. Rope, okay. And someone taps on it again. Says, okay, what is this? What is this? Oh, it's a fan. It's a fan just came to our town. Okay. So, wait. Oh my God. Someone says, whoa. This is sharp. This is a spear just came to our town. Someone's saying a rope. Someone's saying a fan. Someone's saying a spear. Someone said, no, I got it. It's a tree. It's a tree trunk. I can feel it. I can tell it's a tree trunk. And someone else goes, no. It's a hose. It's a hose. I can feel it. They're all touching the same creature. Again, they're blind. They cannot see, but they are perceiving through their touch. What is this that has come to our town? And someone says a rope, someone says a fan, someone says a tree, someone says a spear, someone says a hose. And then one person who's passing by the city, he's able to see with his eyes. And he says, oh people, what's happening here? He says, oh, we're trying to figure out what has come to our town. What is this thing? This one we are not able to see. We're the city of the blind. One person saying it's a rope, another one saying it's a tree trunk, someone saying it's a spear, someone saying it's a fan, someone saying something else. We can't figure it out. We're all looking and we're all touching the same thing, but we're not understanding what it is. He says, okay, the man with sight, because he can see what it is. He said, what did you say it was in the back? I said it's a rope. Okay. What did you say in the middle? I said it was a tree trunk. Okay. What did you say towards the front and the top? He said, I thought it's a fan. Okay. What did you say towards the right and the front of the thing? What did you say? See, I thought it was something sharp, something like a spear or something. Okay. And someone, what else was the last one you said? I felt it was like a hose or something. He said, did you think of maybe trying to put together all of the things that you were seeing or saying or feeling? Oh. And so they started to try to attach the pieces of the puzzle. And when this person who was holding what he thought was the rope, he said, come with me. And he takes him by the hand and he takes him to the place where the person who saw the trunk was. And he says, feel here, feel. Oh, the trunk. And he takes the one who was by the trunk. He says, hey, here, come, follow me, feel, come. And he comes to where he thought that person said there was a fan. He feels it. He's like, oh, yeah, just feel it. Oh. And then he takes all of them around. And he says, now that you have come to these spots, what do you think it is? And they all said, we were not all wrong. This is not what it was. He said, gentlemen, what you have before you is an elephant. What you imagined was the tail, the rope was actually a tail. And what you imagined was the tree trunk was actually the feet of this elephant. And what you imagined was the fan was actually the flap of the ear of the elephant. And what you imagined was the sharp spear was actually the tusk of the elephant and the ivory. And what you imagined was a hose was actually the snout or the nostril of the trunk of the elephant. The idea is that you and I may be looking at the same picture from different spaces, and we think we are right, and you may be right. But until and unless we look at the whole picture in totality, we will not get to truth. We will not get to reality. It was the job of the emissaries, of the apostles, of the prophets to come and help people move from the tail to the trunk to the whole creature and the whole beast, to see the whole picture, to tell the people that you are loan sharking and you are taking advantage of the people. You're doing fine, but people are suffering because of your action. Or to tell the tyrant and the zalim, you're living on High Street, but people are suffering and enslaved because of your action. You're not seeing the concept of an ummah, of a nation, of everyone together. And that comes through enlightenment, that comes through education, that comes through knowledge. And this is what the prophets perhaps came for. When Musa was told by God that, Musa, you think you've reached a high status, go and find someone with more knowledge. Did Musa say, oh, I've learned this and I've learned that and I did this and I did that, and you're telling me, Moses, you're telling me to go and find someone who has more knowledge than me? He listened and he submitted and he went and found more knowledge. When you think that you know everything, remember, that is where the decline has begun. As soon as one thinks that they know all, that is where the decline begins. Because there is so much more to learn, there's so much more to know. Inshallah, we'll continue in the next khutbah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wal asr, inna al-insana lafi khusr, illa alladhina amanu wa amilu as-salihat wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بعد الخلائق أجمعين فاطر السماوات والعظيم، والصلاة والسلام على رسول الكريم محمد المصطفى صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وعلى علي أمير المؤمنين، وعلى فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين، وعلى حسن المجتبى والحسين شهيد بكربلاء، وعلى علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والخلف الهادي المهدي حججك على عبادك وأمنائك في بلادك صلاة كثيرة دائمة. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. My respected elders, brothers and sisters, elders, youngsters in Islam and Iman here in Florida, across the globe, wherever you're hearing my voice, Salamun alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I bid you and your families the blessings and pray for your blessings on this blessed day of Friday of Jum'ah. May Allah bring grace and happiness and prosperity to your lives, and so that you may cheer and bring happiness to your loved ones. My hope and my goal is, and my understanding and the vision of what we're trying to chart is the community of the future. And one question that we need to ask is, what's next? What's our next step? That is, there is a certain form of Islam that we got growing up in. For example, I grew up here and I was born and raised here, but other people came from other parts of the world. I've also lived in other parts of the world. And you see things. When you travel, you see things. You realize that the way that I do something is not necessarily the only way. Now, it doesn't mean that my way is bad, but there may be another way to do it. And it's important for us to understand these things, because if we don't, we start losing the essence of nuance. And what I'm saying to you is that it's possible for things to not be black and white, for things to be gray. It's possible for two things to be true at once. It's possible for something to be the case where, for example, it's technologically it makes sense, and otherwise it. I'll give you an example. One of my engineering friends who's done quite well for himself financially, and interestingly, you find out there's an argument that perhaps simultaneously, don't take this personally if you have this car, it's a work in progress, and so I'm a fan of the car, but don't take it personal, but simultaneously the safest car on the road right now may also be the most dangerous car on the road right now, simultaneously. That is, at once, how is it possible for one vehicle to be the safest and also the most dangerous? And some engineers and technologists say that perhaps the Tesla right now is simultaneously both. It is simultaneously the safest car on the road and simultaneously the most dangerous. Why? Simultaneously, the most safest, because if you're in a situation where you're about to be in an accident and a drunk driver, that the technology in that car can engage and save you and your life perhaps better than most other vehicles, if not all on the road. One. But two, it may simultaneously be the most dangerous because of its ability to catch on fire, for example. Its ability to, for example, be hacked. A 19-year-old in Europe was able to hack into a Tesla, open all of its windows, open up all of its doors, of somebody else's car, by the way, not his own, because a security company did this. So what I'm saying is, simultaneously, it's the safest car, and simultaneously, at this point in time, it may also be the most dangerous car. So now you and I start a whole debate. Tesla is safe versus Tesla is dangerous. And the people who own Teslas are on one side, and the people who don't are on the other, and everyone's trying to defend their view. And you may find that both parties are right. It depends on where you're looking at the elephant from. Are you holding the tusk? Are you holding the rope? Are you looking at the whole picture or not? So this is what nuance is. Where does nuance come from? The understanding of nuance. This understanding of nuance comes from education. And it's very important, as I draw to a conclusion here, it's very important to be educated. Education does not only mean degrees, by the way. That's not what I mean. I mean the time to read, the time to learn about not only Islam, but also to learn about science and technology, and come forward with an understanding. I was in the library. I don't know if people still go to the library or not, but there are these things where there are books, and you can go there and you can learn. It's an amazing, amazing thing. But now you can go online and you can learn a lot of these things. There's a whole series called 30-second, you fill in the blank, 30-second biology, 30-second astronomy, 30-second quantum mechanics. Now, how much you'll get in 30 seconds, that's a different story, but they know that people don't have time today. And nobody's willing to put in the hard work to understand, so they had to put these in espresso shots so everyone can read it in 30 seconds and understand it. But what's important to understand is when you start reading and expanding your mind, you may be able to get further. Why am I saying this to you? The state in which you live matters. This country in which you live matters. The county in which you live matters in terms of your educational attainment and your educational abilities. When I go and travel to other cities and other states, believe me, when I say certain things, there are certain communities who say, Sayyid, you didn't go strong enough. You didn't go hard enough. You didn't go in enough. Oftentimes they are on the West Coast. I'm not saying they're right. I'm just saying that there's a different dynamic of where you're living has an impact. When I go to New York, there's a different flair. When I go to DC, there's a different flair. When I go to Chicago, there's a different flair. What's the flair in our city, in our society? I'm saying this as I'm coming to my point that the elections, Florida elections are upon us, November 8th. And when I read the lives of our founding fathers of the United States, they were people who were adamant about knowledge and education. In fact, Thomas Jefferson, who I've told you about Thomas Jefferson's Quran, the book by Dr. Denise Spellberg that I recommend you all read and buy, who's a professor at the University of Texas, where she talks about the Quran that Thomas Jefferson owned and he read. This Jefferson, he was trying to create an environment where everyone had a fair shot regardless of whether they were a Christian or Muslim or Jew. Why? Because they had come from Europe and they were Protestants predominantly who were being discriminated by the Catholic Church. And they were not getting religious tolerance. So they said we need to create an environment where anybody and everybody, even if they're not Protestant, they get freedom, they get religious freedom. And so they created that. But one of the things that Jefferson himself said was, the only way to preserve our democracy is to make sure that the masses and the populace is educated. If they are not educated, you cannot preserve the idea of America. This was the view of Jefferson. So what did he do in order to preserve his view? He endowed the University of Virginia, one of the most prestigious universities in America, top 25 institution. And when he designed it, he's put right at the center. He built the entire campus around the library because he said libraries and books and knowledge were essential to growth and development of society. He said, he has his own words, he says, I cannot live without books. Today, we have other forms. It doesn't have to be a book. You can have an audio book. You can have, you can learn in some way. Just make sure that the knowledge is credible. Today, with certain YouTube and mainstream, there's somebody sitting in a remote village in the middle of nowhere, and they know what the intelligence agencies of the world don't know. MashaAllah. That's mostly for ideas and hits and things. So make sure that the information on either side is credible. Why do I say this? You may have grown up in a family, for example, that's affluent, that does business. But you have to know the lay of the land. In a place like India or China, for example, the government has such control that you and I may not be able to get into that market. China controls their economy. But what was interesting was, it seems, and I'm saying this for the next generation, it seems the last truth tellers in our world are actually comedians. If anyone understands what I'm trying to say here. That the likes of Jon Stewart, when he was on the Daily Show, when Alibaba hit the stock market, he said, I am shocked that the communists have beat us at capitalism. And this notion and this idea that there's one thing that's said and one thing that is done. But you and I, for example, you'll find the wealthiest people in India, they have certain types of businesses. And the people in, for example, China, they were able to replicate US businesses. But in America, if you want to be the elite, and you can check the numbers on all the people who are the wealthiest, you need to educate yourself. That doesn't necessarily mean go to college. I'm saying this because for the third year in a row since the pandemic, college educational enrollment has declined in America. And I know it's a fair point on the other side, because who wants to get the burden? Ask me, student loan debt is a big burden. It's not easy, especially when it accrues interest. It's burdensome. I'm not saying that one should get heavy student loan debt. No. But what I'm saying, and that's fair to say that they're not job opportunities, but what I'm trying to invite you and I to think is, please educate yourself and learn. That doesn't necessarily mean spend thousands of dollars on education. Today, we have access to information and knowledge that people have never had before. You and I can go into a Harvard, MIT, Princeton University lecture online from the comfort of our homes. There's no excuse to not know why. The biggest billionaires in our world, in American society, are in technology. The people who are in computer science, the people who are in petroleum engineering, the people who are in pharmaceuticals, the people who are in X, Y, and D, you go down the line, electronic vehicles and space travel and things of this nature. Now you may be in an environment where you're doing okay, you're like, I'm doing well. But what I don't want you to do is, there's this pattern. If you read the life of, the likes of Andrew Carnegie in his Gospel of Wealth, or you talk about the likes of Standard Oil and the Rockefeller, John D. Rockefeller. I don't know if you know, when they broke up, I was just reading this the other day, when they broke up Standard Oil, which was in a monopoly, they had different chapters. Standard Oil New Jersey, Standard Oil New York, Standard Oil California. Do you know Standard Oil New Jersey, what it became? One became Exxon, one became Chevron, one became Mobil. These are giants. But they did in philanthropy. They did a lot of bad things, I'm sure, but they gave in philanthropy. But what I'm trying to help you understand is, Allah may have written, you go to Allah, you go to God, and God says, Alhamdulillah, God, I had a good life. I had my bills paid, I had a couple of houses, I had a couple of Teslas, life was good. And Allah said, look, I wrote billions for you. You only tapped into a little bit. What do you mean? Had you educated yourself, had you learned a little bit more, you could have had impact. You know what they all said? All these likes of Rockefeller, as well as I close, Carnegie and others, they said the biggest thing in lesson learned was, people have this pattern in life. They work really hard, they accumulate wealth, they set up businesses, and then they try in the end of their life to try to give it all away. Sometimes people don't have an opportunity to do that, they die early. Or if they do live, they scramble to try to have their memory saved. You may be thinking, I can either be rich or I can either be impactful. But if you just trust in Allah with strategy, with thinking, and raise your level of thinking, you may find that you are able to do both. You may have impact and wealth. Remember, Jeff Bezos was set financially on Wall Street. He was one of the youngest partners at G.E. Shaw. But he said, if I miss this wave of the internet and I don't go and build this company, I'm going to regret it on my deathbed. Warren Buffett talks about hot and cold regret, or regrets of omission and commission. He said, I never regretted regrets of commission. Things that I did and they didn't go right. I invested in a company, it went wrong. The things that I really messed up on, he says, are the things that I wish I should have invested and I didn't. FOMO, as we call it today. Fear of missing out. And that's really the key and the essence of understanding. You know what he had FOMO about? Walmart. He had big FOMO about Walmart. He missed the bus. And he says, $100 billion more we would have had. The idea is understanding things from multiple dimensions, and that happens from education. You and I need to be educated and involved, final thing, involved in the political process in these elections. Why? Today I was reading that Circle K gas stations in Florida will start to sell cannabis. Although it's not legal in the state, medical usage is legal. So they're going to start selling this at gas stations. Now, if you just listen to the populace, The populace was supposed to be educated, but we did not educate them to the level that Jefferson wanted. And so people will say, oh, it's safe. But I've told you before, it's not safe for everyone. And tomorrow it's going to be sold in gas stations, and tomorrow, a day after that, it will be legalized, because it's been legalized in so many other places. Because, again, two things may be true at once. Many young people will tell you, Mama, Baba, look, if you read the history of America, when you ban certain substances, they become more bigger. For example, the era of prohibition. When alcohol was banned in America, there was a time, I don't know if you know your history, alcohol was illegal in America. But when it was illegal, it was used more. When I went to India, they told me in Gujarat it's supposed to be a dry state. They said you can find perhaps the most alcohol in this particular province. So banning something sometimes makes it a bigger demand. But at the same time, what do we need to do? We need to educate our community to help us understand what can we do in terms of helping people's health, wealth, and happiness, increasing their understanding of financial, increasing their understanding of happiness. One thing that you can do in increasing your happiness in relationships is use reflective listening. So many problems happen in family and community life when we don't use reflective listening. Reflective listening is when someone says something, I repeat it back to them to make sure I understood what they said. And sometimes they also say, oh, I didn't mean it that way, sorry. I missed the mark. I wish I had this opportunity, by the way. I'm saying this right now, and you're probably thinking that he's doing X, Y, and Z. So someone said, that guy told me to get out. And in his mind, he was talking to himself. You thought he was saying get out, for example. You never validated and verified it with him. You should have asked him, are you telling me to get out? Oh, okay, I'll get out, no problem. Or, oh, no, I wasn't talking to you, I was talking to somebody else. Reflective listening. This is how you and I will build a better future. Education, involvement in the political process to make sure that your rights are and your voices are heard in order that we can have a better future. Remember, the system in America is neither good nor bad. The system is the system. You and I make the system. We have the ability to participate and we have the ability to not. So the choice is yours. You get involved or not. Otherwise, people will take advantage. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Qul huwallahu ahad, Allahu samad, lam yalid wa lam yulad wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن عليا ولي الله. أشهد أن عليا حجة الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. فاز جمعا الصلاة بنسقي ومحياي ومماتي لله رب العالمين وجهت وجهي لفطر السماوات والأرض حنيفا مسلما. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يسبح لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض الملك القدوس العزيز الحكيم
هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كانوا من قبل لفي ضلال مبين وآخرين منهم لما يلحقوا بهم وهو العزيز الحكيم. ذلك فضل الله يؤتيه من يشاء والله ذو الفضل العظيم. مثل الذين هم من التوراة ثم لم يحملوها كمثل الحمار يحمل أسفارا بئس مثل القوم الذين كذبوا بآيات الله والله لا يهدي القوم الظالمين. قل يا أيها الذين هادوا إن زعمتم أنكم أولياء لله من دون الناس فتمنوا الموت إن كنتم صادقين ولا يتمنونه أبدا بما قدمت أيديهم والله عليم بالظالمين. قل إن الموت الذي تفرون منه فإنه ملاقيكم ثم تردون إلى عالم الغيب والشهادة فينبئكم بما كنتم تعملون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون. فإذا قضيت الصلاة فانتشروا في الأرض وابتغوا من فضل الله واذكروا الله كثيرا لعلكم تفلحون. وإذا رأوا تجارة أو لهوا انفضوا إليها وتركوك قائمة قل ما عند الله خير من اللهو ومن التجارة والله خير الرازقين. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد وأرفع وأسجد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد يا لطيف ارحم عبدك الضعيف. الله أكبر. الحمد لله وخير الأسماء لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن عليا ولي الله. أشهد أن عليا حجة الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. من صلاة المستقيم أحياء إني وجدت. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد وأرقى وأسجد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. الحمد لله وخير الأسماء لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد وأرقى وأسجد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر.
سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده.
الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد وأرفع وأسجد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر.
سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده.
الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر.
سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمد. ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد يا لطيف ارحم عبدك الضعيف.
الله أكبر. الحمد لله وخير الأسماء لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما.